And hello and welcome to the 9th knockout challenge of the IBS School Debate on NBC Television Kundu 2. And welcome to all here at the hall. I'd like to say thank you to our supporting partners, that's NBC Kundu 2 and the official flag carrier in New Guinea, and also the National Capital District Commission, the National Gaming Control Board, the Office of the Climate Change, the Papua New Guinea Electoral Commission, as well as the LNA Construction, NES Fund, Brian Bell, and the Ipatas Foundation Incorporation from Anger, which is supporting the Anger leg of the competition. Well, today is going to be a very, very exciting round, but the schools that are taking part in the competition in the following round up until the 12th round, St. Chalse Liusauga versus Port Moresby Grammar School. They'll be debating the topic called population growth should be more controlled. Also, we'll be having Don Bosco Technical School versus Tokara High School, and they'll be debating casinos should be encouraged. And Mount Diamond Secondary versus Sogeri National High School, they'll be debating the topic abortion should be permitted. And Kupiana Secondary versus Mainohana Secondary School, they'll be debating the topic one-talk system is still appropriate for today's society. But here's something very special about the 6 participating schools in this next round of challenges. And it's St. Chalse Liusauga, Port Moresby Grammar School, Don Bosco Technical School, Kupiana Secondary School, and Mainohana Secondary School. This is their first time to challenge in the IBS School Debate, so please give them a big hand. I'd like to quickly go through with the participants some rules. There's 4 minutes, 5 minutes for the first 3 speakers of the opposing team and the affirmative team. On the 4th minute, you will hear the bell ring. Demonstration, please. Cling, cling. That's it. Oh, sorry, only once. But if you hear the second one that rings twice, that one's telling you that it's about 30 minutes to your full time of 30 seconds to full time of 5 minutes. And the 4th speaker gets 10 minutes. On the 9th minute, first ring. On the 32nd to the full 10 minutes, you will have 2 buzzers. So just a reminder to you. For those of you who are attending and for those of you who are listening, now the competition is adopting and applying the straight knockout system. So these next 6 participating schools, you lose, you walk. So all the best in your challenges today. All right. The 12 winners with the highest 12 scores will advance to the elimination round. And from the elimination round, the winners will advance to the semifinals, while the losers discontinue. The draw only allows for an even number. So if you are in the 5th placing in the semifinals, you will not continue, but you will get the 5th ranking in the NCD Central IBS School Debate competition. And the 2 final winners will advance to the semifinals, to the grand final, and that's where we'll know the winner for the NCD and the Central Province. So the winner gets to challenge the winners from Anger, East New Britain, as well as Ley Morobe Province. So good luck to those teams participating, and I hope you make it in the top 12, in the top 6, and turn out to be the winner for the NCD's school debate. I'd like to introduce to you our adjudicators, and they are Mr. John Eco of BizTech Office Supplies. Please give him a big hand. He's one of the pioneer debate judges, and he enjoyed his trip to Ley when they had the competition in Ley, so I'm sure he's going to be enjoying this. I hope he doesn't travel in the next round. Okay, one thing about John is that he's a strong believer or supporter of developing young people through debate. Is that true? And some of you are already showing signs of good debaters. good public speakers, good leaders that's with the topics that you're discussing can lead to something very interesting, aspiring in your career life path. Also supporting him today is Dr. Mark Solong. He's the Dean of Institutional Development at the Institute of Business Studies. And it's good to also have a lady adjudicator, Miss Ashwin Enoch. She's a senior lecturer and registrar, and she's specialized in business communication and language. And we hope they will have a good time in the topics discussed today. Ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome the team that's for the topic, Population Growth Should Be More Controlled, St. Chalse Liusauga Secondary School. Macy Malala, Emmanuel Kavanagh, Wali Aumau, and Golaba Gonapa. Come up. And from Port Moresby Grammar School, the opposing team, please make welcome Jerome Sesega, Alice Kaika, Felicia Gigi, and Paul Isa. As good competitors, please meet your fellow debaters. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let the challenge begin. Let's call from the affirmative team from St. Chalse Liusauga Secondary School, Macy Malala, to introduce her team and, and what they'll be talking about, and also do the first presentation. Macy Malala.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good afternoon, adjudicators, timekeepers, the opposing team, and the wonderful audience. I'm Macy Malala. The first speaker of the affirmative team will briefly define and explain our topic. Our second speaker, Emmanuel Kavanagh, will be arguing from the environmental perspective. Our third speaker, Wali Aumau, will be stressing on the economical effects, and our fourth and final speaker, Golaba Gonapa, will be stressing on the social effects as well as summarizing our group's arguments. Firstly, I'd like to define the term population. Population refers to the total number of human beings on planet Earth. Control means to manage. The topic population growth should be more controlled simply means to manage the total number of human beings on planet Earth. Now, with the present world population, which is 6.92 billion, it is expected to reach between 7.5 and 10.5 billion by the year 2050. World population has quadrupled in the last 100 years. Papua New Guinea's population has tripled in the past 40 years. By 2050, Papua New Guinea's population could grow to 20 million. Each year, about 200,000 babies are born in Papua New Guinea. That clearly shows that we have no control over population growth in Papua New Guinea. Now, you may ask, why is it so important to control population growth? Population growth must be controlled. If not, it will result in overpopulation. Overpopulation is the condition of having a population so dense as to cause environmental deterioration and impaired quality of life, or a population crash. Overpopulation occurs when the resources available cannot sustain the growing population. A recent study in 2010 by David Pimentel, Professor of Ecology and Agriculture at the Cornell University, suggests that the Earth can support a population of 2 billion individuals. Earth's resources are enough just to cater for the 2 billion, and every human being on planet Earth can live a dignified life. Now, with the current population, we have long ago crossed the limit of 2 billion. However, the United Nations argue that the Earth has the capacity to support 6 billion people, but only if a great majority are willing to live in misery. Now, are you all willing to live in misery? No, neither do I. That is why population growth must be controlled. Now I'd like to refer to the Article 25 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights by the United Nations. It states that everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for health and well-being of himself and of his family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care, and necessary social services. It also states that motherhood and childhood are entitled to special care and assistance. We have got a great majority who are not protected under this right. Underdeveloped and developing countries have the maximum human population due to insufficient resources and illiteracy, causing an increase in poverty. Malnutrition, lack of medical facilities, increasing the mortality rate, especially infant and child mortality. 10.6 million children died in 2003 before they reached the age of 5. That is roughly about 29,000 deaths per day. In Papua New Guinea alone, which has less than 7 million people, we've got an alarming infant mortality rate that is 4.3 out of every 1,000 live births. To give you some facts, according to Wikipedia.com, 1 billion children live in poverty, 640 million live without adequate shelter, 400 million have no access to safe water, and 270 million have no access to health services. That shows that they're clearly being deprived of the rights. Children have rights, and since the population is increasing, they are not being protected under this right. They are being deprived of the rights. Now, according to World Bank figures for world poverty, reveals a higher number of people live in poverty than previously thought. For example, the new poverty line is defined as living on an equivalent of $1.25. That is roughly about 3 kina plus in Papua New Guinea currency. With that measure, based on latest data available, 1.4 billion people live on or below that line. Furthermore, almost half the world, over 3 billion people, live on less than $2.50 per day, and at least 80% of humanity live on less than $10 per day. Now, according to a UN survey, about 25,000 people die of hunger or hunger-related problems each day. This is due to the lack of population control. A classic example would be the Somalians. About 3/4 of the population are dying of starvation. This is due to the lack of population control because the resources available cannot sustain the increase in population. Therefore, we, the proactive government of today, forcefully and firmly believe that population growth must be controlled in order to avert overpopulation and its distractions. Thank you.
Thank you, Macy. She's the first speaker of the affirmative team from St. Chalse Liusauga Secondary School. Now I'd like to call upon the first speaker from the opposing team from Port Moresby Grammar School. Please make welcome Jerome Sisega.
Thank you, Chairperson, educators, the lone timekeeper, and my fellow debaters, Chalse Liusauga. My beautiful counterpart right here, she stated that she based her whole speech on increasing population. Okay. In fact, population growth rates are slowing down everywhere. That is a fact. They are slowing down everywhere, even in Africa. Let's imagine population as a rocket. It goes up, and then it has lost its trajectory. This has happened in 1970. So we can see that the rocket falls down. Population decrease. Okay. Population, should it be controlled? I am the first speaker of the negative team, and I will be basically providing the platform, the basis for our team case. Population growth should not be controlled. My second speaker, she will provide the structures, and she will build on that base, and she will provide the basic structures, the main part of the argument to counter. And then, thirdly, the third speaker will come inside, and she'll enhance on those views and on those ideas that we've brought across. And then our fourth speaker will summarize. As you all know what summarize means, he'll summarize and he'll give you guys the lowdown on what we will be discussing. Okay, population growth. When we look at this statement, there are a few words that stand out. There are a few words that scream, if you like, for further scrutiny. We've got population, we've got growth, we've got control. Population. Population is a term that measures people in a particular area or country. In fact, if you look at it, population is the scale whence mankind is weighed by. As a practical example, when a male and a female, when they reproduce and they have a family, this in itself a natural human process. They are in fact contributing to the population in their society, in their country, globally, in the world. And thus, they're contributing to population and population growth. Population growth, as stated in the CIA World Factbook, is the annual average percent in population change resulting from a deficit or surplus of births over deaths and the migration into and out of a country. So basically, they're trying to stop something which is a natural process. They're trying to go against, to control population growth. That is just like saying we're artificially stopping, we're bringing about something that is not human, that is not natural. Population growth should not be controlled. Population growth is a natural entity. Population growth, it defines our physical order. It is part and parcel of our human existence. Control population growth? No, no, no. Population growth is not. Population growth is not. N-O-T, not. Population growth is not a cause of the global issues that we are faced with. Do you guys want to know what population growth is? Do you? Population growth is a mere symptom. That's what it is. It's a symptom. A recent publication revealed that UN experts agreed to population growth being not a cause of the poverty and inequality in our world. Population growth is not the cause of the global issues that we are faced with. Rather, the unequal distribution and the unequal general distribution of the goods, the food, for example, health, that is the real reason why population growth has become an issue globally, locally. Population growth in Papua New Guinea has become a real issue that has only come about due to the incompetence of the government. We can see that Papua New Guinea, as we are now, we are not, how shall I say, we are not morally stable. The leaders of our country, they don't have their priorities straight. Population growth has come about because of these inabilities. In Papua New Guinea, people are moving into the towns and into the urban centers. That is what you call urbanization. That is very, 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 very different from population growth. I just want to make clear right now, you guys may be sensing the similarities between them. They are very different. Population growth and the population growth and urbanization. So, our main point is the Papua New Guinea government has lacked in financing and in looking after our basic services. Therefore, that is what they are at fault. The problem is failure. Government is at fault. And thank you.
That's a good one. Jerome Sesega, thank you very much. That's the first speaker from the opposing team. And I'm pretty sure Jerome's looking for a rugby league team in his family, yeah? All right. Please make welcome the second speaker from Port Moresby Grammar School, Alice from the St. Chalse Liusauga Secondary School, Emmanuel Kavanagh.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good afternoon, judges, timekeeper, and you wonderful audience. I'll be stressing on the topic from the environmental perspective, but before I go on elaborating, I'd like to make a quick rebuttal on what our beloved first speaker on the negative team has stated. Okay, he has stated that indirectly he has stated that we are trying to deprive the free will of man. Deprive the free will of man. We are not. Each one of you sitting down here will surely come to see your offspring. That's nothing. That's possible. You're going to see it. But the problem here is that, listen, the problem here is that we are trying to control the population which is growing at an alarming rate. If we do not control it now, it will surely affect both you and I, one way or the other. And also, he has also stated that the government is at fault. The government is not at fault. Population growth is natural. And it is up to us as individuals to control the offices that we bring into this world. Anyway, back to my points. Okay. Now, let me ask you a simple question. Is the human population affecting the environment? Yes, it is. According to the Inter-Academic Panel Statement on Population Growth in Human Numbers and Presidential, stated that many environmental problems such as rising levels of atmospheric carbon dioxide, global warming, and pollution were aggravated by the population expansion. Now, I'll be coming to you in a three-point perspective caused by the ever-increasing population. And they are pollution, land degradation, and global warming. Now, pollution. Air pollution. Air pollution is the result of rapid growth of industries and also the increase of automobiles around the globe that are here to cater for the growing population and make life easy for them. While they are here, they are emitting greenhouse gases into the atmosphere in large amounts. According to Wikipedia, air pollution around the world is increasing at a rate of 13.5%. And that is deadly. And you and I know that air pollution affects both us as human beings and the natural environment. If you do not know, let me give you an example of India. India, according to statistics taken from the World Health Organization in 1996, 84,000 people died from outdoor air pollution. At the same time, indoor air pollution accounted for 496,000 people. And in cities, 93,000 people. Now, Papua New Guinea has not yet experienced this, but it will if it doesn't control its population. Now, water pollution. Water pollution is sourced from discharge of wastes from homes and farms. Also, harmful chemical waste from industries and mines. If we allow the population to increase, this means there will be a huge task to control their waste. Many of the world's rivers, lakes are polluted, limiting the amount of fresh water consumption. And we all are living things. And we need water to survive. No water, you die. Now, listen carefully here. Now take for example, Port Moresby City, right? If we allow the population to increase at a rapid rate, then we will have more waste discharges at Morata Swamp. Is where we discharge our sewage waste. And if there is more people, more waste, eventually one day, people who are living around that area, I am sorry, but that place will overflow and it will cause public health disorders. Now, listen to me carefully. If we divert our waste into the rivers, lakes, and seas, it will destroy the marine life, contaminating the rivers, lakes, and seas, limiting the amount of fresh water that both you and I need to survive on this planet Earth. Can you see what the increase of population can do to your environment and affecting us? Okay. Now to my second point, land degradation. Activities such as farming to cater for the ever-increasing population has led to global land mass degrading. Now take this area. If the population is increasing, we are saying that, okay, let's plant some cocoa here and some things here to produce food to feed 1,000 people. Do you think that's enough? If there is more people, we need to require more land for food production to feed them. And when we require more land, more people, more land, very soon, if we don't realize, our land will be degraded, leaving us with no good quality land, which will not produce good food. And all the human beings living on earth will starve to death. Do you want to die? Now, let me give you a clear example of a nation which is overpopulous and they are losing their land to land degradation. India. Out of the total land mass of 338.7 million geographical area, 176 million hectares has been lost to land degradation. This is because of farming and agricultural activities taking place to feed its population of 1.18 billion. Now to my final topic, final point, which is global warming. One main effect of deforestation is global warming, which leads to climate change. Now, worldwide, about 13 million hectares of forest are down. As you and I are sitting here, they are cut down. And global warming is currently happening. It's going to affect both you and I. It's not one man going through this thing. Now, we must understand that the environmental issues that we are now going through is not because of industries and factories or cars or whatever. It's because of the ever-increasing population. Therefore, we, the government, proactive government of today, strongly and firmly believe that population growth should be controlled in order to decrease the environmental issues that we are going through.
Emmanuel Kavanagh. Emmanuel Kavanagh has reignited the fire. Please give him a big hand. From the affirmative team, St. Chalse Liusauga Secondary. Let's hear it now from the opposing team. From Port Moresby Grammar School, please make welcome Alice Kaika.
Thank you, Chairperson, adjudicators, timekeepers, and my fellow debaters. Firstly, to rebut on what our first speaker has said, you were talking about pollution. Now in Papua New Guinea, we have carbon trade. The trees that are going to be in the carbon trade will ensure that there's enough oxygen to cover air pollution. There'll be enough oxygen being produced by the trees to ensure that we breathe fresh air. That's on carbon trade. And secondly, he was talking about reforestation, deforestation, sorry. Yes, the world is losing its precious rainforest. In Central America, for example, the decline has been 38% in just 30 years. But it is a few rich people who are responsible for this, not the growing numbers of the poor. In the Philippines, 34.6 million acres of rainforest was reduced to just 5.4 million acres by logging programs during the crop Marcos regime. Now you can see that even though we have logging and this is due to population growth, we'll still have trees. Trees will still grow. We have reforestation plans. When they cut down trees, they plant new ones to cater for the population growth. And now on to my point.
Force and when people have access to the necessary education and training. Now, therefore, uncontrolled population leads to number 1, unemployment, number 2, underemployment, and number 3, low capital because there is a large labor force and the government is inadequate to distribute the capital to the large labor force. Now, according to the UN criteria for developed nations, it was noted that countries that move from developing status to developed status reduce their fertility fertility rates down to replacement level before the economics began to take off. And countries like South Korea, Japan, and Taiwan. So, in order for the economy to rise, they began to reduce the fertility rate. So, Papua New Guinea, what are we waiting for? We need to control the production of children. We need to control the production of good children in order for economy to rise. Is that correct? Of course it is. Now, let me compare USA and India. USA is a developed country with a population of 300 million. And its economy controls the world's economy. It's obvious, right? India, okay, however, India is a developing country with a population of 1.18 billion, which is higher than USA. And we obviously know that it has a strong economy, yet there is poverty, malnutrition, and famine. So that proves to us that each population, that proves to us that uncontrolled population growth is an hindrance of economic growth. And so, finally, the lessons from India, China, USA, and Japan has taught us that as a proactive government, we firmly and strongly believe that population growth should be more controlled. Thank you.
Oh, this has gone a little bit taller than I suppose. Okay, there we go. The fire's gone bigger. Let's say thank you very much to, from the affirmative team. That's Wale Aumau. Please give him a big hand. He'll make a good lawyer. And that's what he wants to become. Please welcome from the opposing team, Felicia Gigi.
Good afternoon, adjudicators, timekeeper, fellow colleagues, and fellow debaters. I'd like to rebut on what the TED speaker of the affirmative team has said. He said something about the increase in population will increase the amount to feed people. Well, looking from a national productive output perspective, more people in a country or in the world, there will be more production and supply. Now, to my points, I will be talking about 2 points. Point number 1, distribution of food, and point number 2, the impacts on population on the poor people. Looking at this issue globally, and the Earth's capacity, how much it can cater, what it contains, and to support its population, the world doesn't have limited resources. It is rich in abundance of resources. It all comes back to the government and how they manage and distribute the resources equally among all the people. Now, linked to the overpopulation argument, it is believed that the world cannot produce enough food. Well, from the book, The Impact on Global Issues, states that the poorer countries, the so-called third world, support 70% of this world with 20% of the world's income. What about the 80%? When the developed country, there are only 30% that makes up the world population. The 80% goes back to the 30%. What about the rest? 70% of the people in developing nations. Something for you guys to think about. Now, in addition, the income is so badly distributed. Within the poorer countries, at least one-third, and I repeat, 1/3 of the world's population of the developing world lived in abject poverty. This is because of unequal distribution of resources. Although the world produces sufficient food to feed entire people, this is not distributed in a fair way. Thus, it is not a shortage, and I repeat, it is not a shortage of food, but an equal distribution of food which contributes to malnutrition and mass poverty in the developing nations. An example, Africa is not a poor country because there is no resource. It's not a poor country because there are too many people. It is poor because resources are distributed unevenly. To my next point, impact on population on the poor. Now, we say that big families are poor. And poor people would be much better off if they had few number of children to clothe. Well, that is just a myth. And I'm going to tell you guys the fact. And the fact is, this depends on whether the children are a liability or an asset. Okay, different countries have different perspective towards this. Now, in the US, for instance, costing a child supporting from child to the age of 18 will cost about more than $100. I beg your pardon, it's more than $100,000. And 50% of women in US are now using contraception, are doing this because they cannot afford another child. Whereas the case of Papua New Guinea, to raise a child from child to 18, the cost is less, right? And from the different perspective, bringing you guys back, in Bangladesh, boys are already producing more than their parents' investment by the age of 10, and repay their parents' investment by the age of 15. In Java, Indonesia, children are net incomes by the age of 9. This is one reason why sons are so important to some countries. Girls usually leave home, well, obviously girls leave home and they do not repay back what their parents' income. That's to do with other countries. So that is why sons are very important to them. And in Sahel, a couple has to bear 10 children to be 95% certain of producing a son who will survive to the age of 38. When there are no pensions, bearing a son is absolutely vital for the old age security. Another reason, old age security. For the developed nations, they have pensions. And the old people can live. What about us? Do we have pensions? No, we don't. So, more kids for security purposes. And then it comes back to why my team and I agree. Controlling the population growth will not address the problems we have. It is not a cause. It is, again, a symptom. It is the government's problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Felicia, for your presentation from the opposing team from Port Moresby Grammar School. This is the IBS School Debate, the third in the series. This is the 2011 competition. This is, of course, the NCD and the Central Province round. Following these, we'll have Anger, as well as East New Britain and Morabel, Lay, who will be participating. At this juncture, I'd also like to say thank you to our supporting partners, that's NBC Kundu 2 and the official flag carrier in New Guinea, and to the National Capital District Commission, the National Gaming Control Board, the PNG Electoral Commission, Office of the Climate Change, NES Fund, Brian Bell, and the IPATAS Foundation, also LNA Group of Companies. Now we'll listen to our fourth and final speaker from the affirmative team. Please make welcome Golaba Gonapa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Master of Ceremony. Good afternoon, educators, special guests, and you, the electrifying future leaders of this nation. Before I continue on with my summary, I would firstly would like to rebut on what the negative team have mentioned. Okay, the second speaker of the negative team mentioned that PNG we are consuming our trees for carbon trade. Okay, what we have to understand is PNG are consuming their trees for carbon trade. PNG is only one country. Okay, how can a small number of trees available produce enough oxygen? oxygen available for the increasing population, when the carbon dioxide produced by the population is greater. Okay, to the first speaker, what the first speaker has mentioned, we didn't state that we are to stop the ever-increasing population. Population growth, as defined by my first speaker, okay, we are trying to manage the growth of population so that we do not encounter the destructions of our population. The third speaker mentioned something about the land. Land can still produce for a growing population, produce for a growing population. Okay, what about the land? Okay, there wouldn't be any land available as the population increases. More infrastructure, the demand for economic growth, more infrastructure would be needed, and there wouldn't be any land available for agricultural activities. Hence, you cannot provide for the increasing population. Now to my points. My first point. Overpopulation has an adverse effect on health, housing, and other basic services. Due to the increase of population, health services become inadequate. This results in shortage in medical drugs and overcrowded hospitals, in which we are experiencing today. Uncontrolled growing population can lead to environmental deterioration, which in turn acts as a health hazard. A classical example would be India, with a population of 1.18 billion people, a great number suffering from hygiene-related diseases. Recently, the country experienced an outbreak of dengue fever, which took many innocent lives. Okay, statistics shows that 200 million people die every year worldwide due to dengue fever, as reported on Al Jazeera News. Therefore, uncontrolled population growth can have a lot of negative effects on health. Thus, it leads to inadequate, safe drinking water, poor sanitation, poor drainage, and waste management treatment. An example would be the disposal of chemical waste into the Angabanga River system in Central Province, which resulted in deaths and the spread of many diseases. According to the World Development Indicators report in 1997, 1.5 billion people live exposed to dangerous levels of air pollution, 1 billion live without clean water, and 2 billion live without proper sanitation. To my second point, housing. As population grows, the opportunities for quality available housing may become an issue. More people crowded into less space is not a good combination in any locality. As space is taken up, it becomes more expensive. Eventually, it begins to affect the poorest in the area referring to a country or a city as a whole. In the long run, the effect of overpopulation may be substandard housing, settlements that we see, and homelessness. Take, for instance, our own city, Port Moresby. There are many results to prove that the number of people are exceeding the number of available housing opportunities. That is why we see illegal squatter settlements being built in and around our city. These places in turn provides the breeding ground for the many social problems which we face today in our country. Food shortages, that's my third point. According to the UNFAO, United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, they have stated that food are at a 50% year low. But the world will require 50% more energy, food, and water by 2030. The world will have to produce 70% more food by 2050 to feed a projected 2.3 billion people and an income rise. Shockingly, the observed figures for 2007 shows an actual increase in the number of undernourished people. 923 million in 2007 and versus 823 million in 1995. The most recent FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization research pointed at an even more dramatic increase to 1.02 billion in 2009. Though PNG, we can boast that we still have the resources available. Realistically, let's look at our demand. Look at our demand for economic growth and infrastructural development. With an increase in mining activities, land will be used up, and the people of this nation will have less land to produce the necessities to sustain themselves. To confirm, a geologist Dale Allen Pfeiffer, I quote, claims that the coming decades could see spiraling food prices without relief and massive starvation in global level never experienced before. To my fourth point, education and literacy. Roughly, what needs to happen or what could happen if we are just to cope with or to keep up with the population increase in PNG? I have 1 point here. To keep 60% of kids getting a place in primary schools, we need to build more than 133 new classrooms and new primary schools each year. Now tell me, is that a possibility? It almost goes without, but the world will require 50% more energy, food, and water by 2030. The world will have to produce 70% more food by 2050 to feed a projected 2.3 billion people and an income rise. Shockingly, the observed figures for 2007 shows an actual increase in the number of undernourished people. 923 million in 2007 and versus 823 million in 1995. The most recent FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization research pointed at an even more dramatic increase to 1.02 billion in 2009. Though PNG, we can boast that we still have the resources available. Realistically, let's look at our demand. Look at our demand for economic growth and infrastructural development. With an increase in mining activities, land will be used up, and the people of this nation will have less land to produce the necessities to sustain themselves. To confirm, a geologist Dale Allen Pfeiffer, I quote, claims that the coming decades could see spiraling food prices without relief and massive starvation in global level never experienced before. To my fourth point, education and literacy. Roughly, what needs to happen or what could happen if we are just to cope with or to keep up with the population increase in PNG? I have 1 point here. To keep 60% of kids getting a place in primary schools, we need to build more than 133 new classrooms and new primary schools each year. Now tell me, is that a possibility? It almost goes without saying that the government planned for the people, but in PNG, the government planned for the people without taking population growth into account. It is not the size of the population that PNG can cope with, it's the rate of the population increase. A fast rate of population increase, 1, increases the dependency ratio, and 2, make it impossible to provide fulfilling work for a vast number of young people coming through the population pyramid. And for now, I would like to bring your attention across to cancer. Cancer is an uncontrolled multiplication of cells. The population explosion is an uncontrolled multiplication of people. Treating only the symptoms may make the victim feel comfortable at first, but eventually dies, often horribly. A similar fate awaits a world with a population explosion. People are a good thing, but population growth without limitation is not. Therefore, with the affirmative team and as a proactive government side, we strongly go for the population growth must be more controlled.
Thank you. The final speaker for the affirmative team, that's about 5 minutes, 10 seconds, I think. Timekeeper. Okay, just a reminder, you have 5 minutes for your presentation. Sorry, 10 minutes for your presentation. That's for the final speaker. Okay, they're done. Now, let's hear it from the opposing side. They take advantage because they come out last. Let's see if they can convince you in the debate that population growth should be controlled. Please make welcome Paul Isa.
Thank you, Chairperson and adjudicators. Firstly, I would like to rebut on what the last speaker said about carbon trade. He said that we are the only country participating in carbon trade and there will not be enough oxygen to sustain our living. First of all, we have to know that we are not the only country that is participating in carbon trade. Therefore, there is enough oxygen going around. The other countries that do participate in carbon trading, so that should not be the case, not enough oxygen. To re-emphasize further on what my fellow speakers have said, the first speaker, about population growth being a mere symptom, we have to see it in a point of view. Just think, for instance, take population growth is a symptom. Okay, take, for instance, the real sickness is not population growth. Population growth is the symptom. Let's look at malaria. Okay, malaria is the sickness, right? Okay, we have the symptoms of malaria are fever. Likewise, you cannot cure the fever unless you cure malaria. So once you cure malaria, you get rid of the fever. Likewise, we look at population growth in the same way. Population growth is not a problem. It is a symptom. And once we get rid of the real problem, we will slow down rapid population growth. The real problems behind rapid population growth are underdevelopment, unequal distribution of resources, just like what my three speakers have said. Population growth is not a problem. Okay. The problems associated with population growth are like urbanization, what my second speaker said. Okay, urbanization is caused by the lack of delivery of services, not by population growth. And I have to stress to you that it is not population growth. It is not population growth that causes the problems around. We see the problems around us every day in the cities. Urban areas fluctuate, the population fluctuate because rural settlers come into urban areas because they do not have the services that are supposed to be provided by the government in the rural areas. That is the whole reason why that they come into the urban areas. So the real problem is distribution of resources. We also have to note that today, the world market of today is designed in a way that it delivers scarce resources only to the rich. And much of this wealth that the rich consumes flows from poor countries. About 70% of the world's resource consumption, annual resource consumption, comes from third world countries. In fact, developed countries benefit from crops grown in third world soils. They derive most of the wealth that is accrued or caused by third world countries. So you see, the wealth comes from third world countries, but it is distributed unfairly, and therefore it goes to developed countries, making the gap even wider. Developed countries go way up there, while us, we go down. And while we are experiencing this, developed countries, they enjoy cheap goods which are produced right here in developed countries at low wages, which is really, really unfair. But when you stop to think about it, when one contemplates the desperate need hundreds of millions of people have for resources, for the basic necessities energy could produce, and one realizes how much of these resources that are flowing into developed countries for non-necessities, you will start to realize that it is not more of a population problem, but a problem of morale. The moral problem becomes more evident. A lot of people may think today that the more people there are to feed, people are hungry because there is not enough food. Well, I can tell you that enough grain is grown in the world to feed everyone ample protein and as many calories as an average American eats. It's just how we distribute it. It is not the resources themselves, not the population growth. Every country has the resources it needs to feed its people, even where many people go hungry. In Mexico, 80% of the children in rural areas are undernourished, while livestock eat more basic grains than the whole rural population. Where's the logic in that? Why are we even talking about controlling population growth when we cannot even distribute our resources wisely? And then we have to come to the issue of overpopulation. People are hungry because there are too many people to feed. There is no relation that is just not true. There is no relation between how many people a country has for each acre of land, whether or not there is hunger there. A fine example is that the Netherlands has almost twice as many people per acre of land than Bangladesh. But Bangladesh has half of its population chronically underfed. So, even if Bangladesh has a smaller population than Netherlands, why aren't they feeding them? It all comes back to the distribution of resources and service delivery. Population growth in itself isn't a problem. The real problem is the basic services that the government fails to provide, causing the urban population to fluctuate. In turn, it causes a high concentration of the population in small areas. If the government successfully provides these services to remote rural areas, we won't even bother about asking population growth should be controlled or not. And because our rural areas lack these services, they are illiterate. They do not know how to read and write. They are uneducated. And because they are uneducated, they do not know anything about family planning. Therefore, it leads to the case of overpopulation. Because uneducation, because of the illiteracy rate, basic services are not delivered. That is why population grows. It's not the other way around. Services like health and education are not provided by our government. Therefore, population has a rapid growth here in Papua New Guinea. We cannot blame population growth on its own. And as a recommendation, we have to address the issues, the real problem of underdevelopment, of inequality, of the resource distributions. And once the government tackles these issues, we will not see rapid population growth. Therefore, we, the affirmative, the negative team, strongly believe that population growth should not be controlled.
And that's the final speaker from the opposing team on the subject, population growth should be more controlled. Ladies and gentlemen, that has been our 9th challenge in the first round, and a winner from this challenge will be selected to advance to the preliminary round. Firstly, I'd like to thank Macy Malala, who is the leader of the team of 16-year-olds, and she's accompanied by Emmanuel Kevena, Wali Aumau, and Golaba Gonapa. Please give them a big hand. And from the opposing team, we have Jerome Susega, Alice Kaika, Felicia Gigi, and Paul Isa. Please give them a big hand. While they're wishing themselves all the best, I'd like to thank our supporting partners, that's NBC Kundu 2 and the official flag carrier, Air Niugini, and also to our major sponsors, the National Capital District Commission, the National Gaming Control Board, the Office of the Climate Change, NES Fund, Brian Bell, Ipatas Foundation Incorporation, and the LNA Group of Companies. And the adjudicators, they are busy tallying the scores. I'd like to say thank you very much to them, to John Iko, Dr. Mark Solon, and Ms. Ashwin Enoch. Give them a big hand, as well as our timekeepers.